What's up, YouTube? I'm the Nice One, and today we are going to be making we're going to try and make a knight character model, but this time I'm honestly going to try and keep it to like 30 minutes. Every time I make these videos, I always tell you I'm going to do it in like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever, and I always end up doing it in like 2 hours. So this time I'm very much going to try and keep it to one video and in a digestible amount of time so that you don't have to split it up in multiple parts. So before we start, some quick updates, or not updates, housekeeping as usual. All my keys are right here at the bottom right corner, so you can see my keystrokes, and I'll try and speak out loud as I'm going. So let's get started. I'm working with a base model here so that all of my proportions are consistent with my other character models. You'll find the base model in the description, so you can download it from there, so we're all starting from the same point. Okay, let's make a knight character model as quickly as we can. So let's start with a plane. Let's rotate that here, and then let's go like this. Maybe bring it like that, like there. So I'm going to be starting with the helmet of this character model, and essentially what I'm doing is making a plane, and then I'm going to use a mirror modifier to duplicate this plane onto both ends. What I did there was I deleted the vertices so that I can make this mirror modifier, and now when I change one side, it'll be even. So let's go into top view here, and let's start extruding around to start making this character's helmet. Basically the start of the helmet, like that. And you'll notice that I turned on clipping. That's so that whenever a mesh vertice meet in the center, they are still connected. So that's important. Okay, that looks good. Next, let's extrude the top portion up like this and click. And then we'll scale it down using S and G to position. And then we'll do that again like this, scale it down some more, and then G to position so that we get sort of a rounded top piece of the head here, maybe something like that. And once we're happy with that, we'll hit F to fill that side. Now let's go on the profile, and let's select these edges right here. Yeah, let's select these edges, hit 3 to go into side view, and then let's extrude this down so that it looks like a helmet. Do like this, and then maybe we'll go and grab this vertices and go like that. Actually, we'll add an edge loop right here and do something like this, just so that it looks more like a helmet. Okay, great. So we got the first top portion. We got the top portion of this helmet done, but I need to scale it a little bit so that it shapes around the head a bit more naturally. So what I'm doing here is selecting these edges using Alt click, and you'll see that it selects all of the connected edges like that. Now I'll select these ones, and let's actually unclip for a second and do like this, and then turn back on clipping so that we can connect these edge vertices that sort of got a little messed up in the process. So yeah, something like that's good. There we go. We don't want overlapping vertices wherever we can, so we're going to try and manage that as best as possible as we're going through. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. Scale that down a little bit. All right, I think that's decent for a top of the helmet. Next up, what we're going to do is make the bottom portion of the helmet. So let's go Shift A and make a plane again. And then we'll rotate that like this, bring it up some more. Maybe bring it forward like this. And then we'll go into edit mode and cut it in half. Vertices to delete these vertexes. Object mode and apply a mirror modifier like that, just like we did with the helmet. We'll turn back on clipping. We'll go into top view with 7, and then we'll go like that just to round it a bit, and then we'll select this edge, and like what we did with the top of the helmet, we will start morphing this plane around the face to make sort of like a bottom chin guard. Yeah, that looks great. Next up, we will select this bottom edge by using Alt Select. We'll scale it a little bit, like that, just so it shapes a bit, and then we'll use E to extrude, click to confirm the extrusion, S to scale in, G to position again, and we'll do that one more time. Scale, G, something like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now let's select these edges, and we'll not extrude. That's not what I want to do. We'll just select these edges, and we'll hit G, 3 and G to bring it back a little bit. Perfect. Just like that. Just so that it makes more of like a, I don't know what to call it. It's like a chin guard. It's like a jaw guard, I guess. Now we'll bring this out a little bit so that it's like a bit more sharper here. And let's do this. Maybe we'll do a little scale up on the Z axis. And we'll scale up on the X axis a little bit. Yeah, okay, cool. Next up, I think what we should do is probably select these edges right here. And we'll extrude one more time. Scale it and bring it down like this. And then we'll do an F to fill. You know what, actually? Yeah, you know what? We'll do it this way. Let's grab these here and push these around so that they fill out the bottom of the chin a little more, a little nicely. Yeah, okay, cool. Perfect. Yeah, I like that. All right, cool. Yeah, it's looking good. Let's select this edge and maybe scale it in a little bit. Scale this up. Scale it up like that. Maybe bring it up a bit so it looks like it covers his chin a little more properly. And now we got these edges here which are intersecting a little bit. So we want to move them so that they are underneath. They're kind of like underneath the, or I guess behind the jaw plate. So I'm just moving these around right now to get them in the correct position. Okay, cool. Perfect. That looks good. Let's select these, not that. Let's select these and bring it down. 3 to go into side profile view. Go down like that, and nice. All right, cool. So we're cooking. Let's select this whole mesh, select all the faces with A, and then we will do an E to extrude. We'll pull it out just a tiny bit, and then we'll scale on the Y axis like that. And we'll also scale a little bit on the X axis like this. Maybe bring it down a touch like that. Yeah, great. Now you see that the helmet has a little bit of thickness to it. So it kind of looks like an actual plate of armor. We'll do the same thing here. So E to extrude. We'll extrude out. Maybe shift this up a little bit and then maybe scale it on the X a little bit like that. And then we'll take the whole object and scale it like that. Maybe do something here, drop it down. Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm liking how that's looking so far. Cool. Next up, we'll add a subdivision surface to smooth out the edges. Let's bump up the levels. And we're gonna wanna add bevels on the edges of this helmet so that they look a little bit nicer. So what you see me doing here is I'm selecting the edges on the kind of like basically edges that I want sharpened. So give me 1 second. So here I've selected the edges, and if I hit Control B and bevel, you'll notice that it's become a lot flatter, right? And if I select this edge right here, I need to select this very specific one like that, and I bevel this as well, you'll notice that it's become sharper there as well. The rest of it is relatively smooth, but this inside edge has become a lot sharper, which is good. Let's do that, and let's see if we can do a little edge slide. So we'll bring this in like that, slide the edge in a little bit, just to give this front bit we'll scale it up on the Y, just to give it like a sharper point here. And then maybe we'll do it in a few more places. So Alt select that, bevel, and let's Alt select this. We'll bevel this as well. And you know what? Maybe for good measure, we'll bevel that. Yeah, there we go. Cool. That's looking pretty good. Let me bevel this one. Yeah, cool. All right. Smooth and some sharp edges to make it kind of seem like metal armor. We'll do the same thing here. So we'll do a subdivision surface, bump up the levels a bit, and then we will go into edge select mode, edit edge select, and we will select essentially all these edges here, like this. Yeah, just like that. I think I need this one, these ones, this one, and these ones. So if I go back, yeah, that looks right. And then maybe I will select, no, that's perfect. We'll go Control B to bevel. And there we go, sharpened edges. Nice. We'll select these guys, give this a little bit of sharpened corner. Select this guy, give it a little bit of a sharpened corner. And there you go. Okay, cool. That looks great. Let's add an edge loop right here. And then let's select this edge and we'll scale it on the Y a bit to point it out a bit more. Just so that it has a sharper line straight down like that. Perfect. That's looking pretty awesome. All right, now how am I doing on time? 10 minutes. Okay, cool. So let's add another plane and we'll rotate that plane like this. We'll bring it forward again like that. Go into the side view, bring it front like this. And then we will go into edit, cut this in half, edit vertices, delete those, back to object, apply a mirror, turn on clipping. And then let's select this guy real quick, bring it forward so that it has a tiny bit of a curve. Select this edge right here, and then we will, like we did before, we're gonna start extruding around the top of the helmet to make kind of like a visor. Yeah, great. So let's select this with Alt select. We'll extrude up again, and you know, honestly, we probably only need to extrude up once, like that. And then, let's go on a side. Let's see what happens when we do this. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, okay, cool. That's looking pretty good. Now we'll go into this to round this out a little bit. And then we will select these and we will rotate this down a little bit, because I want this to become kind of like a little visor for him. So let's scale this out. There you go, like that, to round it a bit. Yeah, perfect. Cool. That's looking awesome. And then, all right, great. That's looking great. So let's select the whole plane, extrude out to give it that thickness we love. And then maybe go into top, grab G to bring it forward a little. Yeah, awesome. That looks pretty cool. Now, let's go into front view. Let's scale it in a little bit. Maybe we'll scale it up a tiny bit, and then we'll like rotate it a touch, like that, maybe. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And now, finally, what we'll do is let's add a couple edge loops. Let's add one right here, and let's add one right here. Because what we're gonna do is maybe one more right here. Because what we're gonna do is I want to add little like vision slits right there in these three places. So I'm gonna need to add one more set of edge loops like this, and one more like that. Perfect. Next up, we're gonna select these guys right here, these three guys, and we're gonna extrude down. There you go. Now he's got kind of like a visor thing. Not visor. Yeah, he's got a visor with like little slots to see through. So that looks pretty cool. Nice. Okay, let's add, well, okay. Before we add a subdivision, let's just start adding the bevels, because it'll be easier if we do it from this point. So let's go into edit mode. And essentially what I want to bevel, you see how I'm selecting all this? I want to bevel. Actually, it might be easier if I go into face select. Yeah, let's do it this way. Nope. Nope. Yeah, like this. Yeah, let's select these inside faces right here. And then we'll do the same for this. Okay, cool, great. Now, let's go into edge mode. See there, edges are selected. Let's hit bevel and do a quick bevel. Just like that. Perfect. And then we'll do another bevel right here. We'll do one more right here. And then we'll do one here, 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 and here. I guess we could probably do this just for safe measure. Perfect. And then let's add the edge loop like right there. Now, let's add a subdivision and see how it turns out. There we go. Cool. Okay, turn up the levels, and now it's subdivided, smoothed out, and we have a cutout. And we can probably select all this, maybe add an edge loop to sharpen it, maybe add one right here as well, sharpen that, and there we go. Great. Now we already got a bit of a helmet going. It's looking pretty good. So a couple more things to add. Let's do a cylinder. Yeah, let's do a cylinder. We'll scale it up like this, scale it down a little bit. Bring it up 3, maybe put it like this, because we're going to give him a little bit of a plume. I think that's good. Yeah, cool. So that can be the source of his plume. Now we're going to add another mesh. We're going to add a cube. Let's bring this just up here, and let's add an edge loop right here, add an edge loop right here, and then one more right here. And then select these vertices like this, and select the middle one last. Hit M to merge it last to create a point, and then go into face select mode. Or actually going to bring this way up, and you could probably even select these faces and scale it down. And then add a subdivision to kind of make a little sharp point like that. Yeah, and now you can sort of modify this thing to be the kind of shape that you want. And you can even add little edge loops. Nope, you can even add edge loops like here, and then rotate these around so that you get the curvature that you're looking for. I'm not going to make this like super perfect, so I think that's probably good enough for this purpose. And then position it where you need it. So that looks good. Maybe something like this. Like that. Go into 7 to view top view. Maybe do a little rotate. Let's do a little duplicate this. 3, and then maybe something like this. And then obviously you could like take the vertices and like modify it a little bit so that there's some variation between your plume. And then let's add one more, I guess. I'm using 6 to rotate the camera a little bit. We'll do it like that. There we go. Cool. Yeah, I love that. Nice little plume. All right, done. Sorry about that, y'all. Something went wrong with my audio recording, and I basically lost the audio for the second half of this video. So what I'll do is just talk over the video now, and I won't change the speed or anything, so you can still follow along. What I'm doing now is I'm making essentially the hinge point for the visor. So I'm taking a cube using Shift A, and then I'm going to add a couple edge loops here. So I'm going to add one at the top and one at the side. And then I'm going to take the edges at the top and the edge at the bottom here, and then scale on the Z axis to make kind of a point. And I'll do the same thing on the left and right to make a point on the other side to make kind of like a diamond shape essentially. Once I've done that, what I'm going to do next is select the faces, the front faces of this sort of diamond-shaped mesh and extrude, hit E. But I'm not going to move. I'm going to right-click and then scale it down to make this rim around the edge here. And once I have that, I'm going to extrude one more time out like this, and then I'm going to scale it in to make a point. Scale it down just like that. And now we got like a hinge point, sort of a pivot point for the visor. Rotate it around a couple times and basically position it along the helmet where you expect the visor to be, and maybe like the jaw guard. And you're pretty much done. It's looking good. I might want to rotate this down just like that a little bit, just so that it fits a bit more appropriately. But once we're happy with that, we're going to add a mirror modifier. And then you're going to use the eyedropper tool and select the circle in the back to make a perfect mirror on the opposite side. Just like that. If you don't have that circle in your base mesh, just do Shift A and create a circle, and then make sure you push it back a little bit on the Y and push it up on the X, but make sure you don't change the Z position or the red line, the X position, so that you can get a perfect symmetry. Now from here, what I'm going to do is select the faces, basically select the head here, and I'm going to shift it up a little bit so that I have some space to make the chest plate and the body armor. Now from here, I'm going to do a plane, rotate XZ 90 degrees to get it front facing, and then bring it forward a little bit to where I want the chest plate to be positioned. Add an edge loop straight down the middle and delete the vertices on the left. Object select, add a mirror modifier. Just like what we've done with the helmet and the other pieces. And now I'm basically just going to extrude the edge around the body, the mesh body, so that I can get an initial chest plate going. So you see me doing that here. I'm extruding around, and I might have to do some interesting camera movement. So it's going to be a bit rough to start, but once we basically have the chest plate shape, basic shape made, we'll tweak the edges to be a bit more appropriate to where they need to be after that. So you see me doing that here. I'm now connecting it, so I basically have an initial chest plate. I'm going to move these edges around to make it more more plate looking, I guess. Maybe move some vertices to give it a better shape, and basically model it around this this reference model by using G and positioning, but basically just positioning the vertices. I'm going to move up these edges here a little bit, and then I'm just going to make a little shoulder strap to go around the shoulder so that they look like they connect a little bit. Maybe do a little modify, rotate right there, rotate on this edge, extrude this one, extrude it down. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to select vertex mode and select the different vertices and use F to fill it in so that they're connected, just like that. Now move these around so that they're a bit more appropriate, or fit the mesh, the base mesh, a bit more accurately. And then I'm just going to be moving around some of the edges and the vertices on the back here so that it doesn't, just so that it makes more of like a back plate armor piece. So I'm just going to be tweaking that for a little bit here. Yeah, this is where a base mesh comes in super handy, if I'm honest with you. Having a base mesh gives you a reference for where all your pieces should be. You don't necessarily need to have one, but I like working with one just so that all my character models are approximately the same size and shape or proportionate. And it makes modeling armor and clothing a little bit easier, because then I can use it almost like modularly and replace the armor where I need to, or reuse assets here and there, because it's all separate meshes. Yeah, so you see me finishing up now. I've got the chest plate done, the breastplate done. So if I'm going to select the whole thing and hit E to extrude out, and then scale it along the Y-axis and the Z-axis to give it that thickness that we like to make it look like actual metal armor. And there we go. Yeah, so now I'm just going to do some final tweaks for the breastplate And once we're happy with that, I'm going to add another edge loop straight down here because I want to make a small little point right down the center. So I'm basically going to select that front edge and bring it forward a little bit just to, give it give it a little more shape to it so that it's not just flat across all across everywhere. Once I'm happy with that, I applied a subdivision surface modifier, and then I'm selecting the edges around the half of this breastplate to then bevel so that we get a sharp edge on this piece. And I'll probably bevel a few more areas here. So like, for example, I'll select this one, alt click, bevel that, and then Alt click another edge, bevel that. And then, it's pretty much good at this point. I think it looks pretty good. Next, we're going to move on to the bottom half of the torso. So we're going to do the same thing. Do Shift A to create a plane. Rotate that along the x-axis so that's front facing. Add an edge loop straight down the center. And then delete the vertices on the left and right. And then start using the mirror modifier on the edges. There we go. Delete the vertices. Edge select here and then rotate around using E to extrude and basically just get a rough shape so that I can connect the back pieces. Make sure you turn on clipping and then just connect the back piece like that. And once you're happy with a rough shape, just start moving things around to fit the base mesh. So don't feel like you need to get it perfect on the first try. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm essentially fitting it now to the underlying mesh so that it looks a bit more proportionate. I'm going to bring this down to give it a little edge, a little point here to make it look like layers of plate armor. And once I'm happy with that, I select the whole thing, use E to extrude again to give it that thickness, and then scale down on the Z so that it's a bit even. Maybe I'll scale the whole thing up on the Z a little bit as well. So that's a bit larger. And basically just position it underneath the breastplate so that it looks like layers. Now what you see me doing is going into vertex mode, selecting all the vertices at the bottom and using the scale and move tool to position it, just to position it a bit more appropriately or fit it to the base mesh the way I want it to fit a bit more accurately. But there you go. I think that looks pretty good. Might need to bump this up on the Z axis a little bit. But overall, it's pretty good. We're getting layers of armor here. We got a breastplate, a mid torso, and then now we're just going to reuse that mid torso piece and make a skirt out of it. So essentially, just duplicate it, rotate it 180 degrees along the y-axis, bring it down to about the hips, and maybe scale it up on the Z to make it a bit larger, just so that it encompasses the base mesh. Again, if you're using a different base or if you're not using one at all, you don't need to do any of that, but I just don't want the base mesh to be popping out from underneath. So you see me using that plate armor as like a skirt, plate skirt, and I think it ended up working out pretty well, especially for this type of character model. We're keeping it simple from the start, so don't need to get into too much detail just yet. Now that we have a skirt, we're going to do one more plate layer here to really hammer home this idea that it's multiple layers of plate armor. Again, we're just reusing what we've done before. No need to remake stuff where you don't have to, especially for stuff that it's not super important to the character model or isn't extremely visible to the eye when a person is looking at your particular mesh. So feel free to use some stuff where you need to in order to make your workflow a bit better. So that's what I'm doing here, reusing that mid-torso piece to finish the bottom torso. And now I'm in wireframe mode, vertex select, and I'm just box selecting all the vertices and moving it around with G. And there we go. That's pretty good at this point. Now all that's really left to do is the gauntlets and the boots. So I think I'll move on to that next here. Yeah, and I think to do that, what we're gonna do is we'll do, I think we'll do a little Shift A, create a cube, and then we're gonna position this cube right where his elbow crook is. Scale it up so that it encompasses the entire base mesh, and then take this bottom face here and extrude it down so that it reaches about the wrist. And then we're gonna just start selecting edge loops and scaling it so that it fits the base mesh just a bit more accurately. Kind of like what we did with the torso and the breastplate. We're gonna be just basically box modeling so that we get a good shape to the gauntlet. So I add an edge loop right here using Control R, and then I select this front top edge here, bring it up and rotate it down. Select these bottom edges, rotate it and bring it down, just to give it the gauntlet a bit of a nicer sort of cylindrical shape. Add another edge loop here and select these back edges, rotate and bring it out. And one last time, rotate and bring it forward a little bit. So we get this nice cylinder for his gauntlet. And essentially you're pretty much there. I think you can add a bit more details. Like for example, let's position this where it needs to be, and then let's reuse this hinge spike for the elbow spike. So we'll duplicate this, delete the mirror modifier, and then just rotate this around and scale it so that it's a good size for the elbow, and position it where the elbows was expected to be, and maybe just add a couple of vertex modifications here and there, like for example the point. I think I'll probably scale the whole thing down a little bit and maybe move around the point so that it's not exactly the same as like the visor hinge. Maybe position it so that it's not too off center there. So move this down a little bit and then go to the back view, move it forward so it's a bit even, and there you go. Now you got like an elbow guard back there, and all you have, and it's looking pretty good, positioned where the elbow should be, and it encompasses the base mesh underneath. Next up, what we're going to do is add just some last few details for this gauntlet, because it's a little simple right now, but we want to hammer home the idea that it's like layers of plate armor. So what we're going to do is take a plane, and then we're going to do what we've done before. Run an edge loop straight down the middle with Control R, delete the vertices on the right there, and then do a mirror modifier with clipping on. And then we're just going to select the edge and extrude out a couple times. So extrude out once here, maybe extrude out another time. Make sure I have my box select on. Extrude out one more time, and then extrude these down a little bit. Again, turning on clipping. Extrude it down and then rotate it to give it a point. And then we're going to take these edges, bring them forward so that it has a bit of a curvature. So bring up the first 3, then bring up the second 2, and then bring up the middle 1. So that it has a nice curve to it. There we go. That looks great. Now select the whole thing. Or well, I guess we're going to rotate it first and position it where we want to see it on the gauntlet. So it kind of looks like it guards part of the top of his hand. Now we're going to scale it so that it's a bit more proportionate to the arm. Scale on the Y, maybe scale it, rotate it down here, and then rotate, position up. And once we're happy with that, we select all the faces and use E to extrude up like this to give it that thickness that I keep talking about. And once we're good with that, let's do a little bit more positioning and scaling so that it's proportional. But once we're happy with that, essentially we're just going to duplicate this a couple times to really give this sense of layered armor. So we'll duplicate it 3 or 4 times, and then we'll probably have to rotate this and maybe do a couple of transforms. So for example, scaling it a little bit, scaling this a little bit, using S, scale this a little bit, using S as well. Maybe use R to rotate a bit, rotate this, and maybe position it a little bit. And that's pretty much good enough, I'd say. And there we go. Now we have a gauntlet with like an elbow guard and a couple layers of metal on top to really hammer home this idea of a knight in plate armor. So I think that looks pretty good, and it's simple, but it gets the point across pretty effectively. Next up, we're going to move on to the boots. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do a box, and then we're going to extrude down that bottom face, going face select mode, in edit, and then E to extrude down. And then we'll scale it down to fit the ankle of the boot, or the ankle of the leg. And then we will select this edge, scale this edge loop, scale this edge loop a tiny bit, just like that, so that this boot, or I guess this leg armor, fits the base mesh as accurately as we can. Let's increase the size of this and then rotate that a little bit so that it sits, there's a nice silhouette to it. Let's rotate this back, position it back and rotate it a little bit so that it fits the base mesh a bit more. Scale it up, maybe scale it on the X a little bit so that it's a little thinner. Let's bump this up so that our ankle doesn't look like it's cutting too much. And then we'll add a couple edge loops, kind of like what we did with the gauntlet. We'll add some edge loops using Control R, and then we'll just scale it forward and then scale this to the side so that it has a bit more of a cylindrical look to it, just like that. Perfect, cool. Now go into object select mode. Let's position it a little bit more appropriately like this, maybe scale it in along the x-axis a bit, just like that. Perfect. And then we'll bring it, I think we'll bring it down. Or actually what we'll do is reuse some of the assets we did in the gauntlet. And basically what we're going to do is give him a little bit of a toe guard here. No need to remake things, but if you really wanted to, you can. You can remake these meshes, but I'm trying to save myself time and keep this video under 40 minutes. So I'm just duplicating that piece of metal, that plate metal that we made for the gauntlets, and reusing it here on the boots. So I'm adding it here as a little bit of a toe guard, making it a bit smaller so it fits the boot a bit more. And then what I'm going to do is duplicate it, rotate it around, and start adding that motif of layered metal onto the actual boots themselves. So here's the first layer, rotate it a bit, maybe positioned a bit more accurately or just a bit more nicely. And then I'm just going to duplicate it a couple times going up the leg. Maybe one more time just like that, and scale it up, scale this up, scale that up. And yeah, there you go. Looks pretty good. We probably don't need, honestly, I'll probably get rid of that toe guard because we probably don't need it, if I'm honest with you. I think it's a little unnecessary. So let's delete it here, but there we go. That's essentially it. That looks pretty good overall. Let's do one last thing. So let's select all these meshes in object mode, and then we'll do right click and convert to mesh so that they're the same thing. And then we'll hit Control J to merge. We'll do the same thing with the gauntlet pieces. So the gauntlets, the plates, and the elbow guard, convert to mesh, and then Control J to merge. And then we'll add a mirror modifier here, and then we'll mirror around that reference object in the back. And we'll do the same thing with the boots. Mirror modifier, mirror around the reference object so that we get perfect symmetry. And now we have 2 boots and 2 gauntlets. And there you go. The character is looking pretty good so far. I think that looks really great. I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. So yeah, there's a bit more you could probably do. You could probably add some boots here, not boots, sorry, like side plate armor here if you really wanted to, maybe even a strap if you cared. But we can even add a little bit more detail by adding a subdivision surface. So we'll add a subdivision surface modifier, and like we did before, we'll hit the edges around this skirt, and we're going to bevel this to give it that sharper cut along this edge. And then we'll edge select this one, maybe add a bevel here, edge select this, add a bevel here as well, and then maybe up the levels a little bit so it's a bit smoother. And maybe, well, there you go. That looks pretty good. We'll do the same thing here for the gauntlets. So we'll add a subdivision surface, and then we're going to edge select the opening of the gauntlet right at the crook of the elbow. And we will add a bevel. We'll do the same thing right around the wrist. So we'll select all these edges here around the wrist, add a bevel. And then we'll probably add a bit more, well, I'll bump the levels first off, and then we'll add a few more bevels here in the front of the gauntlet and also in the back. So right here in the front, maybe the top of the gauntlet, we'll add another bevel to the edge loop, and there you go. Give it some sharpness. Notice how it perfectly mirrored on the other side because we still have that mirror modifier. Next up, we're going to bevel the plates of armor here. So I just went into face select mode and I selected the one face, and then I clicked the edge closest to the face to create an edge loop like that. And then I just hit Control B to bevel so that I could select all of the faces that I wanted, or all of the edges that I wanted, to get a nice bevel. So that's one trick. So select the face and then select the edge of the face that you want to make a loop around. This elbow guard is looking a bit weird, so we're just going to add a few more bevels. So we'll add it on the inside loop here. We'll add it here on this first outside edge, and we'll do the same thing on this back outside edge. I went into wireframe mode because I was having a hard time seeing all of the edges that I needed to select. It's a bit of a pain like this. So once I have it all, I'll just hit B, Control B to bevel, and then we'll add one last set of edge loops on each of these cross lines to give it that sharpness. And there we go, looking good. So gauntlets are done with some subdivision surface to smooth it out. So that looks, I think that looks really good. Yeah, nice, perfect. We'll do the same thing here at the boots. So add a subdivision surface modifier and then select the faces on the top of the boot, the opening of the boot, go into edge mode and then bevel. So there we go. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll bump up the levels a little bit first off so that it's a bit smoother. We'll add a little edge loop at this front of the boot and the side to give it some sharpness on both of those faces. And then for the plate armor, we'll do the same thing. Select the face, select the edge to make a face loop, and then do Control B to bevel. So I'll do it for each of these three faces. To give it that sharpness that we really like. And there you go. There you have it. Now you have a simple character knight model done in about 40 minutes-ish. Yeah, and I think it looks really good, I gotta say. I think it conveys the idea pretty quickly, or pretty effectively. There's a few more things we could probably do. We could probably add like a little strap across his body, maybe like a shield or a sword, and maybe some more like plates of armor here and there to give it that detail that we all love, but maybe I'll do that in a second video. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this, and I think it looks pretty good. So yeah, as always, let me know what you think. Leave any comments down below if you have any questions or advice on how to improve, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. Bye. Thanks for watching the video. If you like my content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let me know down below what you want to see next, or just check out some of these other great videos. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you later.